What's up? Welcome to another episode of Daddy Confessions. Today, I am here with my boy Ty. We're going to talk a little bit about a topic that is near and dear to me. I think it's near and dear to him as well, Black history. It is Black History Month. So, Ty, welcome back to the show.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you having me as always, sir.
Yeah. So I think we can kind of we won't forego the introduction because I know Ty is a businessman. I want to make sure that he's able to talk about his business. But you all should know who Ty is. If you have not checked out his stuff yet, you can check it out. Ty, go ahead, tell him a little bit about it.
So yes, my name is Ty, better known as Tyron Robertson. I am the founder and owner of Relationship Entertainment Television, or better known as RETV, where we are promoting positive content 24/7, 365 that not only entertains but inspires and also educates that you can actually check out at re-tv.net, as well as Relationship Entertainment Television on YouTube and quite a few other places. But yes, that's a little bit about who I am.
Very good. So, like I said, we're gonna talk a little bit about Black History Month. I'm in education. It's very interesting to me to talk with my students about Black history. So I'm not in the classroom. I have advisees in my school, and so I sit down and I talk with them. And one of the things that came up first at the beginning of this month was I asked them as ninth grade students what they knew about Black history. And to go along with that, I also asked them, do they feel like we talk about the same people every year? And they told me in no uncertain terms, yes, they pretty much hear about the same people during Black History Month every year. Tell me, what do you feel about that, Ty? Like, I feel like it's always Martin Luther King, it's always Harriet Tubman, it's always, Rosa Parks, Frederick Douglass. Like, maybe every once in a while you can get some other people thrown in there. But what you feel? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so for sure. And it's crazy because I don't know if you've seen this article that literally just came out. I think it was earlier this week. There's actually in the state of Iowa, there's a county or something in the state of Iowa where they're allowing students to opt out of.
It wasn't Iowa. That was Utah. It was Utah.
I know it was one of them. One of the places where there ain't too many of us there. They're allowing people to opt out of Black History Month activities within the school system.
Crazy.
Now, mind you, like you said, we're hearing about the same people over and over and over and over again. And now you even trying to take them the little bit of people that we do talk about on a regular basis out of schools in general in Utah. Like, that's ridiculous. I mean, but yeah, we do usually talk about the same people. It's Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Frederick Douglass, things like that. Now you're sprinkling like Barack Obama in because he was the first African-American president. But yeah, other than that, there's so many more people that, we should know about as African-Americans or just Americans general when it comes to Black history. So yeah, we definitely need to step up the game when it comes to who we talk about on a regular basis.
Right. And tell me how do you, obviously we're not talking about it in schools, right? So, and I know it's something that's important to you. So how have you been kind of supplementing that over the years with your boys and with your daughter as well, in terms of like their understanding of Black history?
So it's hilarious because I was just talking to my wife yesterday for a brief moment, and she made a mention about something about Black history and how our kids usually don't like to listen. And that's true. Your kids are younger than mine, and mine are teenagers now, and it's even worse. They really don't like to hear what we talk about now when it comes to Black history, or especially around Black History Month, which is really when most people go, oh, we're going to talk about Black people the most during the Black History Month. Well, I've always tried to teach my kids 24/7, 365 about Black History Month and Black history in general. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge. But when I think about it myself, when I was 12, when I was 14, when I was 13, when I was 9, I didn't want to hear it either, whether it was in school or whether it was through my mother, because my mother was the main person, back then that was really, oh, Black history this, Black history that. And I was like, Oh, okay, that's nice. But I could only mention to you or name you those same people in which we
Right.
literally just talked about two
Right.
seconds ago. So
Right.
yeah, it's important that we get it not only in school, but we also get it at home with the, and starting from our parents, whatnot.
Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting because again, I talk a lot about my mother on this show, and I know my mother had her mind on a lot of other things, and Black history was not at the top of that list. Not because what I'm saying, not because it didn't our history didn't matter to us, but it was also something that if you never learned it as a parent, you know what I'm saying, then you don't have it to pass down to your kids necessarily. And so if you don't have the time to take and learn it yourself, then you don't have the information to then pass on to somebody else. And that makes it very problematic. And I think is something that is so important that we embed Black history into all history, right? Like
Hmm.
it shouldn't just happen, during 1 month out of the year, because
Right.
then people feel like, okay, well, we only got 4 weeks. We got
Hmm.
to make sure that we hitting the hot spots, right? So we hit, we got to. Oh, Harriet Tubman might be getting on her face on a bill. We got to make sure we talking about Harriet Tubman. You know what I'm saying? We got to make sure we talking about Frederick Douglass. We got to make sure we talk about Martin Luther King, because some people think Martin Luther King like is the
Yeah,
reason for the season. You know what I'm saying? And I'm
exactly.
like that. And so we just got to always remember, like, there are a lot of people who made really important discoveries,
Hmm.
that are the reason why we have the country that we have today. And that doesn't happen, because it only happens once a month, because
Once
we
a
not,
month.
you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying, because you can go through the whole uh Civil War and
Mhm.
never talk about any of the Black soldiers
And that's
in
what
the
I was
Civil
getting ready
War.
to say. Yeah, that's actually what I was getting ready to say though, John. A lot of us don't realize our Black history lessons should start way before school, way
Right.
before what we're seeing on TV. It I want to say this, but I don't want to offend nobody or at the same time. But you just made mention that a lot of our parents and so forth didn't have the knowledge of Black history, so they failed to teach us, right? Fortunately, my mother was an educator, and she's obviously an African American woman, and she was big on African American history back then. So she always tried to keep some stuff, in me and my sister's head. However, even prior to that, or even those who may not have that specific background, where they have a mother for a teacher or a father for a teacher, or whatever the case may be, there is so much history in our families that we don't even realize that we need to tap into. Um, our grandparents, our great grandparents, like you said, were sharecroppers, or they were people who were inventing, or may have been the first person to, integrate into their schools, or, a lot of those things that are little known Black history facts, even just within our own personal families,
Right.
that we should be digging into prior to getting into the Martin Luther Kings, the Harriet Tubmans, the Rosa Parks, the Frederick Douglasses, all of those people. We have a lot of history. If we even start there, then the rest of it will pretty much, in my opinion, come fairly easy.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I've had the option as I've gotten older to sit down with my grandparents before they started to lose a lot of their memories, and just sit and talk about the things that they've experienced. My grandfather being in one of the Tuskegee Airmen, which a lot of people don't talk about. So like I said, there's a lot even within our families that we should be discovering and passing that knowledge down from generation to generation to generation
Yeah.
within in that way.
That's for real. That's for real. And that's and it's so important because I'm gonna give a shout out to my brother Bo, who he texted me after the conversation about growing up without your father, and
Mm.
he listened to the podcast, and he texted me about it because he was surprised to find out some of the information that I had found out about our family on my
Mm-hmm.
father's side, because he had never heard it before.
Got you.
And it's stuff like that that's crazy, like that we keep that kind of information from And in some ways that's another topic, right? Like Black history is our history, and it does start at home, as you're saying. You know, it starts with that the members of our family, the people that we need to be excited and feel pride over what our families have accomplished, right? But we don't talk about that, and that's an issue with the Black family in general.
Agreed.
Right. So we could go down that road. That's like a whole nother topic, you know what I'm saying? Like and how that then plays out for us generationally with our kids and things like that, and like what they know. Like, heck, I'm worried about my sons one day falling in love with his cousin, because we never met, you know what I'm saying? Like all kinds of stuff like that. So those kind of things that's a whole nother conversation. But the reality of it is that we need to take pride in our history, and we can't let other people dictate our history to us.
Right.
And that means, one thing I always say is that one of the biggest problems that we have with the learning and the teaching of Black history is that we are relying on other people to give us the resources to get that history, right? We're relying on textbooks that are made in the state of Texas, where they could care less about Black history. You know what I'm saying?
Let me tell you the problem. The problem with that though, John, is just like with everything. Even I'll even relate it to church and spirituality. You got people who wrote the Bible, but when you have so many interpretations, you wind up losing the authenticity of the actual story that is being told. So when you have your family members and whatnot, or all we're getting is this quote unquote textbook history of Black history, we're losing the authenticity of the actual story to have been told. So we're not being told that our people who were brought over here on slave ships were kings and queens and doctors and lawyers and all of these things that make up a great civilization or society, but they were brought over here to be, workers and all of these things. It's like, so now when we're in school and our kids are in school learning, all they hear about is, oh, well, your great grandfather was a sharecropper, or they picked cotton, or they were house people and this, that. It's like, no, they were so much more and so much greater than that prior to them coming over to this country, that we should be able to know that, yes, you little boy, or yes, you little girl can be so much more, because your family was so much more way before they were actually brought over here. Or even when they were brought over here, they were doing dope things that other people took credit for, that that you learned in the textbook didn't, according to the textbook, didn't exist. Because like you said, people in Texas, or people in some civilization or culture that doesn't care about us, just wrote us in as slaves, or a lot of them don't even want to call us that, because they want to make it seem like we had a choice to be over here. No, sir. Sorry, sir. No, we didn't.
Well, is and actually you mentioned the word slave, right? So having people be called a slave is one of my pet peeves. You read the books, you say, Crispus Attucks was a slave, Harriet Tubman was a slave. You know what I'm saying? It infuriates me, because they make being a slave like it's a job, you know what I'm saying? Like it was something that they chose to do, right? Like,
right.
It's like saying, oh, so-and-so was a doctor, or he was a lawyer. Nah, he wasn't a slave by choice. He was enslaved.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? He was enslaved. So when we read the books to the boys, I always try to remember to catch those moments when they say so-and-so was a slave. That should not be something that is used as a way to describe people. That is actually a descriptor of condition, right? So they were enslaved. That was their condition. That was not who they were. And so that's one of my pet peeves, like using the word that so-and-so was a slave. That's like, I'm an educator. Like, I chose that, you know what I'm saying? They didn't choose to be slaves. Like, you're born into enslavement. You are not born as a slave. Like
Slave,
that's still that that supremacy talk. That's supremacy uh use of words, right? They had supremacy over someone, so they were a slave.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's something that is a real pet peeve of mine. I try to
Yeah, because
enforce.
they've glorified or try to glorify to make it look nice and prettier than what it actually was.
Right.
We were not initially, like you said, we were not born into slavery. We didn't come and God didn't say, "Oh, I'm gonna create slaves." Ha ha.
Right.
No, that's not what happened, sir.
Right.
You know, there were some greedy people who says, "Hey, you people over there look like you can do me some good, and I'm gonna make you do what it is that I want you to do, and I'm gonna trick you into it, so that way you have, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, we didn't sign up for this. Like, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, they came over there on their own and they chose to come work and they chose it. No, that's not actually how it worked. And these textbooks and stuff that y'all have written have made it seem like, yeah, I chose to be out there. My profession was picking cotton. I chose to be, the profession to clean your house as a, no, that wasn't. And I chose to raise your kids, and I chose I chose to be raped. No, like nobody chose any of those things back then.
Right. So, obviously your kids are older, so your boys and your daughter are older. How does that work for them, or how has it worked over the years when they come home with more information, like those first couple years, as they were learning about Black History Month, and they were coming home and they might have been saying, Daddy, today we learned about so-and-so or whatever, like, or did they? Because you said that they could care less. Like, did they ever come home having those kind of conversations with you? And then how did that kind of go in those conversations?
It's funny because I think all little kids, at some point in time, whether they like school or not, get excited about certain things that they learn. And so when they do start to see in their textbooks and their worksheets and things like that, people that are supposedly to look like them, and they've heard their mother talk about or their father talk about, or some things on TV, yeah, they do come home with a level of excitement. Oh, Dad, we learned about Martin Luther King today. Or Dad, we learned about Garrett Morrison today. We learned about, and it's like, okay, cool, dope. I want to. Those people should not be forgotten. Right. Those people we should sit down and talk with our kids, and okay, yeah, let's talk about what contribution these people had, the Malcolm X's and all those other people that had to our society and made the way that they've made for us to do some of the things that we are able to do. None of us, in my opinion, should knock any of those people or any of those things that we do. But then, in my opinion, the conversation goes a little bit deeper, specifically depending on how old your child is. Because usually it starts out with coloring sheets. You got kids that are in the, age, well, specifically one that's in the age of coloring. So usually at that age, they're coloring pictures of Martin Luther King, or they're coloring pictures of Rosa Parks in the bus, and those things. And it's like, okay, well, we know our kids better than anybody else knows our kids. So we can sit down and say, all right, well, now that we've colored this picture of this bus, or now that we've colored this picture of Martin Luther King or whoever it is, let's talk a little bit more about what it is that they did that they're not going to tell you or teach you in these schools. Let's talk a little bit more about, other people who also invented things that are not getting the credit for the things that they invented, whether it's some of the toys, because then those are some of the lessons that you can go into with your kids starting at a young age. Hey, did you know, the super soaker or the water gun that you're playing with was invented by a Black guy? Hey, did you know that this and that and third, that you're playing with, or that they're using, was invented by a Black guy? I just read the other day there was I didn't know this, that there was an African-American lady that started 3D movies.
I was thinking the same thing. I had no idea.
No idea. So I was like, talking to your kid.
It ain't great technology, but
but it
I
was
mean,
the
it
start.
was an idea.
Yeah, it was an
But,
idea, and it was the
like,
start. So if you're thinking and nowadays we're looking at 3D imaging, virtual
yeah,
reality,
that's
and all of
a
those
big
things,
deal.
it's like that's where that stuff started from.
Right.
So let's give that lady her credit, and
Right.
let's tell our kids, that no, it was not this person over here who all of a sudden, came up with this brilliant idea. No, it was such and such and such and such from way back when who started that idea. And yeah, it might have been modified recently, but it was actually invented by a black woman
Right.
way back when. So,
Exactly.
you're educating your children even at a young age, the things that they like, the things that they like to do, the things that they see around them also is in part of their black history outside of the norm of just the excitement of Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King.
Yeah, and it's crazy. You hear that thing. People say like kind of a meme, right? Like I was today years old when I found out. Like, yeah, it's crazy when I'm like, whoa, for real? I had no idea. I guess I was also today years old when I found out that you shouldn't put Gorilla Glue on your head. But those are things that I already knew. I wouldn't do that anyway. But
yeah, those are common sense things right there. Those are common sense things right there.
But yeah, it's interesting. I think how often we have to rely on alternative sources to get good information, right? And also in some cases just to put things in the in the forefront of people's minds at all, right?
Mhm.
So it's sad that we have to wait on movies or television in order for some components of history to even come to light.
Mhm.
um so for instance, I mean, I think about Black Wall Street, right?
Mhm.
And the bombing of Black Wall Street, and how up until about what 3 years ago, like people were not even really talking about Black Wall Street.
Like you said, it's one of
um
those things you don't realize, you don't learn until you're adult. You're like, oh, I'm today years old when I learned about Black Wall Street. Or I'm
right.
today years old when I learned about a lot of those things are not being taught. And understandably why, because they don't want you to know how great things were at a specific time, or they don't want you to know how they ruined some of the things that we as a culture should be proud of,
Right.
and
Right.
we should know about. We're one of the only cultures that don't really give the credit or get the credit for a lot of the things that has happened in a positive light, and
Right.
we should be telling our kids, whether they are 5, 6, 7, 8, or 15, 16, 17, 18, about some of those things. They should be proud of some of the things that, because one, that sparks them ideas within our children to say, yes, you too can start and do some of these things too. Don't be limited by what they told you can be as a
Right.
child. Let your imagination roam free and go invent, go build, go start another Black Wall Street, go build another business, go, invent and create this, and, all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, that dude who, what is it, Lonnie Jones, I think, or Johnson, who invented the Super Soaker.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Yo, I
Johnson.
mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's amazing. Like, I know it took him a while to get his money, but
Mm-hmm.
but just the idea of coming up with something like that everybody uses, that is being used everywhere all the time. You think about the people you see on shows like Shark Tank and things like that, and I'm like, learn that,
Yeah.
understand that you can do whatever you want, and you come from a culture of people who are inventors, who are builders, right? That if you go to any African country, yes, you're going to find some places that have been um
And look, tore
ravished,
down
that
and
have been
ragged.
that
Yeah.
have been
Desolate.
ravished by
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
colonization, but you're
Mm-hmm.
also going to find strong cultural ties, and lots of very upperly mobile people who have become that because they live in and are part of a culture of people who are very strong, who are very smart, who are creative, and that is so it's not just what we see here. It's, you know, the whole African diaspora that I think we rarely get a chance to talk about.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. I mean, I think about you know, and we oftentimes get put into a position where we get uh played against each other. And when I say we, I mean people of color, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I just was listening to an interview recently with Daniel
Okay.
Kalula, you know, the dude from Get Out, right?
Uh-huh.
And he's in this new movie, um oh man,
Judas and the
Judas and the Black Messiah.
yeah, Black
Judas and the
Messiah.
Black
Yeah.
Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's playing Fred Hampton.
Fred Hampton. Mm-hmm.
Fred Hampton,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm looking forward to seeing it. But one of the things that he said in that movie was how, you know, there are people out there who say he shouldn't be able to play black historical figures because he's English. And and the reality of it is that he's black. You know what I'm saying? Like now you if a white person came up playing, you know, Fred Hampton, I would say there's something wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
But I'm saying like here we are, there's a moment, it's a historical depiction of a historical figure in black history. Why does it matter if the person who's playing him is from England or from the United States? Now I get there's a, you know, a monetary thing about that, right? Like, well, there's a lot of American actors here who could do the part and blah blah blah. But at the same time, like the fact is the story's being told.
Right.
And it's being told by black people with black people in it.
And he's admitted himself, and it's crazy because I didn't even put the two and two together, but he's admitted himself that he was not too familiar with Brother Fred Hampton.
Yeah.
You
But a
know,
lot of people here aren't.
right, exactly. Exactly. They, you know, and again, it's because the narrative that's being painted in the story that's being told out there. So when you think of the Black Panther Party, all you're hearing of is a group of black militant guys that started trouble, and they, you know, this, that, and the third. So despite the fact that this brother is from England and playing, you know, an American revolutionary, you know, has nothing to do with the price of tea in China. You know, it's the fact that he is helping to tell a story or open up a story to a whole bunch of people who did not know about Brother Fred Hampton, who did not know that the Black Panther Party was a lot more than a group of militant people who wore black and just rose their black fists and said black power. How they started, you know, out in Oakland and feeding, you know, the community and giving back to the community, and the reason why they look so militant and so forth is because they were protecting the black community from those who were so busy trying to tear it down. So again, there's a lot of that story that winds up being whitewashed or being, you know, painted over because they don't want you to know, you know, what it is that these people were doing positive. And I'll be completely honest with you, John. That's part of the reason why I created my network, because I wanted to control the narrative that's being put out there for us as African Americans. No, my network is not specifically solely, you know, focused on African American, but however, yes, I am a black person. I am proud of my black history, proud of my black culture, my black heritage. And so I want to make sure that when my kids and your kids and their grandkids and, you know, other people our age or even older get to know about the things that we are in our culture are doing positively, and it's not being told by someone else who had, you know, a completely different reason for telling the story because they want to make it look like something else, or they want to, you know, exclude certain things. No, I want our history, our story to be told by us, you know, in its truest and almost authentic form.
Right. You want to be FUBU.
You stupid. Hey, but that's honestly, that was behind Damon John. Damon John then does not get credit for the, you know, for what he has done in our culture when it comes to the clothing industry. Again, a little known black history fact, you know, Damon John, who was the founder of FUBU, and he brought in LL Cool J as his ambassador and so forth. But because we were so busy spending our money with the Tommy Hilfigers and the and the North Faces and who all these people who have came out and said, you know what, I don't want you Negroes wearing our stuff.
Right.
So Damon John said, okay, well, cool. Guess what? I'll create a clothing line in which it's for our, for us, by us, that we can actually go out there and support. Which not only launched that, but told a lot of black girls and the black guys that you too can create your own clothing line. And now we have so many people out there creating, clothing lines, shirt lines, all these different things out there that people did not think that they can do at some point in time.
Yeah,
So
no,
yeah, little known Black History fact about Damon John. There you go.
There you go. There you go. And that's entrepreneurship is a really important thing. So I thank you for putting that out there as something for young people to see. You know what I'm saying? And I also think that we just have to keep telling those stories and letting people know that it's an option. And if that's not where you want to go, if that's not where your mind is to do that, that's okay. But you still need to learn about it. You need to understand that the opportunities are there, and that there are people who have come before you who are making those kind of big moves because they wanted to do something
bigger than
for
themselves.
right. Exactly.
And I think that's where where the name of your podcast or your show is Daddy Confessions. I think that's where us as fathers, as husbands, as male black men in the community, need to pick up the ball and run with it. We cannot drop that ball. We have to let our sons know. We have to let our daughters know. We have to let our family know. One of the things that as you mentioned earlier, it's not easy for me, even having teenagers, to get their attention, for anything for that matter, yet alone trying to teach them Black history. But I damn sure try every year when it comes to, a lot of people don't celebrate Kwanzaa, but I sure every year tell my kids about the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. I sure every year post it on social media, so even people who may not know can say, I've gotten people reach out to me and go, yo, I see what you're doing, brother, and I appreciate it, because I too have learned something, even just your post about Kwanzaa, which has nothing to do with Black History Month, whatever, and that we use those 7 principles 24/7, 365, all year round. And so I try to sit those in front of my kids, so that way, whether they think they're learning it now, but subconsciously learning it, so that way later on in life they can go, oh yeah, I do know about Nia, I do, which is purpose. Oh, I do know about Kuji Jakalia. Oh, I do know about this, and these things to make me what I am as an African American. Why? Because I may not want to listen to what my father said back then, but I actually got what my father said, slowly but surely. So I think it's us, our responsibilities as us Black fathers and Black men, to continue to us learn ourselves, but then take what we learn and impart it into our kids, and not just our kids, but even kids in the community.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. That makes complete sense to me, and that's something that is I'm not gonna lie, I find it hard sometimes because not that I don't want to do it, not that I don't want to make sure that my boys are having those lessons instilled in them, but at the same time I look at them, and maybe it's because my boys are really young, but I look at them and I'm like, should I burden them with that right now? You know what I'm saying? No, but like seriously, I'm like, yo, can I just
I get it.
like how long do I just let them be kids? You know what I'm saying? How long do I just let them have their innocence before I start having to really push upon them things like understanding how important it is that and maybe what you said about it makes total sense, right? It's like you just keep reiterating it over and over again, right? You reinforcing it in a way that seems like they're not taking it in the moment, but over time it starts to build up, and maybe that's why I need to continue to do it, not because I am burdening my little ones, but because I'm setting them up for success in the future. And so I'll be honest with you, I think about that sometimes. I'm like, man, okay, so
As you should, but like you said, there's a way in which you can do it. It just depends on your kids' age. So instead of sitting there, you sit there and try to sit me down as a 2 or 3 year old, or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 year old for that matter, and try to sit there and say, hey, let me talk to you about this person, that person. Yeah, your attention span is gonna be so short, and they ain't gonna want to do nothing. It's gonna wind up frustrating the hell out of you, and you can be like, oh damn it, I quit. But if you live it, if you and your wife live it, if you and your family live it, then it's something that they're picking up subconsciously. Right. If you're showing them things here, or if you're showing them things there, or participating in programming or watching programming, because our kids are like sponges. They're soaking stuff up, the things that we actually do ourselves. So if we're watching Black programming on TV, if we're watching, or if my wife and I are talking about certain things, our kids are eventually going to suck up and sponge up some of that things in which we're talking about, some of the things that they see us do, some of the things that we participate in, whether it's buying Black, watching Black shows on Black networks, buying things from Black businesses, or those things like that, in which you don't necessarily have to say, well, son, we're going to go buy from a Black business today. No, they see you doing it, then they're going to automatically develop that as part of their lifestyle as well. So you don't necessarily have to beat them over the head with it. And then as they get older, then you start to explain, well, this is the reason why we go to this store versus this store, or this is the reason why I've always gone to Mr. John instead of Mr. Billy, or those things that in which you do on a normal daily basis, they'll start to incorporate in their lifestyle, in their thinking, in the way that they talk, in the way that they grow, all of those things, because they do it with us on, again, in school, on television programming, all of those things. We're learning Caucasian white history, and it's nothing that they're like, yo, we're going to sit down during White History Month. No, it's just an automatic thing for them. So why can't it be an automatic thing for us that we're teaching our kids this exact same thing, right, in the exact same way through the exact same mediums?
Right. Well, let me ask you this, Ty. So, this is something that I've been thinking about like a lot, and partially I know the answer to it because I feel a certain way about it, but I wanted to hear your perspective on it. What part does Black music and culture, Black music, television, and sports play in Black history to you?
We are all of those things, in my personal opinion. We are all of those things. And it's crazy because we don't want to seem like, us as a culture, we don't want to seem like the show. We aren't the, don't tell me to, stand up and dance for you, dance for, but actually we are. Because of who we are as people, again, right, we've been diminished as who we are as people. Yes, we've always been athletically built. We've been, our minds have been, well advanced when it comes to things that we use a lot of those things to our advantage. And to the fact that, we are 80-90% of the NBA and the NFL. We are, we are the writers behind a lot of these shows that you see on TV and these movies and things like that. So we should celebrate those things for sure, but we also should benefit from those things. I think part of the problem is, for the longest, we were not benefiting, and even to this day, sure, we were not benefiting as athletes. We were not benefiting as entertainers and things like that, because we were just the show. But if you think about it, we're more than just the show. It takes a lot of skill and talent to be musicians. It takes a lot of skill and talent to be actors. It takes a lot of skill and talents to be, sports, athletic, in athletics and things like that. So we should be celebrated for those things. We should continue to uplift each other, in those things. And, if it comes to it, we should be creating our own, so that way we can continue to build in entertainment and in music. And because all of those things are a part of our history and our culture. And in a lot of times, they take what we've created in the blues and in the jazz and in country and in those things, and have turned it, and all of a sudden it's a white genre, it's a white thing. But no, we are the ones who actually created a lot of those things, and we should be celebrated and continue in a lot of those genres of sports and music and so forth.
So how do you, and I agree with you, 100%. How do we, or do we get upset if in schools or in on television as we're talking about Black history, if everything that they talk about focuses on athletes, musicians, you know what I'm saying? Like, very rarely do we ever hear talked about artists, right? If it wasn't for Amanda Gorman giving such a beautiful poem at the inauguration this year, I don't know when the last time I've heard anybody talk about, a Black poet, right? If it, like, you don't hear that very often. So it's very rare that we hear that aspect of Black history talked about, right? We hear a lot about athletes, we hear a lot about Martin Luther King, a lot about, what I'm saying? So like LeBron James, man ain't even out of the league yet, and he already Black history, like, Beyonce, oh, that people, but is that the type of history we need to be focusing on right now when we talk about Black History Month in schools, on television, things like that?
We can't forget. I mean, honestly, we can't forget those who are currently making history. I mean, we do have a lot, like you said, there are a lot of people who are currently making history. We cannot forget those people, but we cannot forget the people that have made the way prior to them to be able to open the door for the LeBron James and your Wilt Chamberlains and your, all of those people, and your Chuck Berrys when they, back in the music industry, and your, all of those people who have opened the door. The Sam Cooks, if you watch, One Night in Miami, who've opened the door for, these R&B artists and your rap artists, and all of these other people. We can't forget about those people who have come before, but we definitely can't forget about the people who are currently breaking records and making current history today. Because again, our history did not start. It's funny because a lot of people go, "Oh, well, racism, is such a big thing now." It's like, no, ma'am, sir, racism has been such a big thing for a long time prior to the killing of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and all of those other people, Sandra Bland and so forth. We have people who have been lynched and have been killed and shot in the back and shot in the head and killed by police and bounty hunters and all these things for years. So all of that is our history, just like the people who've created music and people who have been, artists and been doing, minstrel shows and all those things way back when. All those people created, a genre or made footsteps for the people who are currently doing what they're doing now. And I think it's important for those people who are doing what they're doing now to acknowledge them, to say, yeah, if it wasn't for these people, I wouldn't be able to stand where I am right now and open up the door for those who will come behind me. We can't forget those who are, who are doing history then, and as well as making history now, because there will be people after us who will continue to make history, I hope, and those people will, again, be a part of our great heritage on what it is that we are doing as African Americans.
Yeah, man, I agree with you. And it's interesting you brought up the idea of people saying that, racism is so big now, like people are talking about it more and more. And I say to people, one of the things that I noticed is, I feel like and this may be an unpopular opinion, I feel like in some ways over the years we became complacent. We moved to a place where we got okay with the state that we were in. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got Black billionaires now, we got, people doing big things. So the struggle, the movement kind of stopped moving.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so what happened when we stopped making progress, when we stopped pushing things forward, is that the 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 growth, or the world opened up to more people having more racist views, more, not they were always there.
Right.
100% they were always there, but when we were making progress, when progress was happening, those people had a much quieter voice. They didn't have a leg to stand on, they didn't have a backing to have, and when we became complacent, and maybe complacent is not the right word, but when we got to a point where we just weren't pushing the ball as much,
Mm-hmm.
in the realm of civil rights, when when we started really relying on people to have positions and workforces of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that person was supposed to do the work. All those kind of things. Like it just led to a this uproar of people with these bad intentions, with these racist views, with these crazy ideas, really feeling empowered because we were just, hey, we were happy in the moment. You know what I'm saying? It was like,
You know what I think it is, John? So if you're hungry and you're like, oh man, I'm hungry, crap, I haven't eaten all day, and I give you a cookie or a cracker, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, that satisfied my desire for hunger, right? Not knowing that I gave you a cookie, I gave you a cracker, I got a whole smorgasbord over here, but all I gave you was a cookie and a cracker. That satisfied you temporarily for your the hunger that you had.
right,
You don't know that I have a big smorgasbord or a whole buffet over here. So you just took that and like you said, you've become complacent. You became satisfied with the status quo as time being because all I keep giving you is a cookie every time you tell me you're hungry. Instead of me saying, you know what, John, have at the buffet over here of what's available to you. And so I personally believe that we have become satisfied or we were satisfied with the little bit that we were being given. Oh, you want your freedom? Okay, well here's your freedom. How all right, so now that we're no longer enslaved people, we're satisfied with the fact that we can now roam free a little bit. Now, you're giving us the right to, have our own house, or you're quote unquote giving us the right to vote and these things. So we're like, oh, okay, we're pretty cool now that we have these things. Still not realizing that we are still not on the same level or same playing field as everybody who has the buffet or who has this whole smorgasbord over here. Knowing they're just giving us pieces at a time, and they got this whole life that they're living. And all we're asking for as Black or African American people is our fair share. We too want a buffet on this side. We too want our own smorgasbord. We don't want just a cookie. We just don't want. And so for so long, as you mentioned, we were so satisfied with that cookie, not realizing that they had so much else over here that now eventually we realized, yo, somebody got a peek and was like, yo, they eating good over there. Why is it that we're not eating the same as them? Why is it that we're not? Why is it that we just got cookies and they got ham, they got turkey, they got steak, they got everything over there? Let us get some ham, some turkey, some steak. So now we're like, yo, let us start making some noise again. Let us start, talking again to say we need to be as equal as you are. Like you said, there was a level of complacency. There was a level of comfortability that people got because we were just getting what we did not have before.
right,
Now we realize, okay, we don't want just what we did not have before. We want everything that you have as well. We want to be the same as you. We don't want to be treated as less. We don't want to be treated as less than or anything. We want to be on the same level field and same playing field as everyone else for that matter. And I believe that a lot of us are opening our eyes to the fact that we're not on that same level playing field in comparison to before, because they believe, oh, civil rights was so long ago, the civil rights moment. But no, that was like 40, 50, 60 years ago. Like,
right,
no, let's not get quiet. Let's not act like those things went away. Let's continue, to make the fight in some form, fashion, or another. Not everybody is a marcher. Not everybody is a leader. Not everybody is a protester. Not everybody, everybody plays their parts. But let's all play our parts equally, so that way we can too get on this same playing field. Give us what it is that we also desire, so that way we too can have a smorgasbord or a buffet of things over here, and let's not become complacent, as you just mentioned.
yeah, yeah, man. That's serious. And I think that as we get ready to close out here, I do want to ask one more question, and I think that um, I always think about this a lot as it relates to my boys, right, and what they know about the history of current history of things happening in this country, right? Of the Ahmaud Arbery, the Tamir Rice, the you know um, all of those people of color who have been killed in this country, essentially for no other reason than because of the color of their skin, right? Um, how does that factor in to Black history in the conversations that you have with your kids? Like, what, you know, it is. First, let me just say, like, I think about it from the perspective of we know the names and we are saying the names, right? Like, you see people, putting them on shirts, you see all of that, and I think back to the times of people being lynched and how many of those people we didn't know the names. We didn't see the pictures, right? It took a long time for any of that information to ever even come to light. And it was hard to get because if the white person who took the picture wasn't going to be like, oh, let me show this around to everybody that I was there at this lynching kind of thing, right? Like, it wasn't necessarily, maybe it was in a newspaper, I don't know, but here we are, we have this history, we have this reality that our kids can see. They can actually experience it again in a lot of cases because it's recorded. Right. So how does that factor into conversations you're having as it relates to Black history with your kids? Um, and what does that mean for Black history? What do you think that means for Black history?
So yeah, I have those conversations with my kids because I want them to know that a lot of what they're seeing did not literally just start. The killings by police officers of unarmed, innocent Black people, Black males, Black females, or not just the unarmed by police, but just by people in general. The killings of Black people did not start, and they need to understand that this is not something that, oh, just because Trump was in office, he started this. No, he didn't start racism. He didn't start people feeling the way they were feeling. People just had a lot of those things balled up inside of them, or were under the covers with it, or under sheets with it, for
Right.
quite some time.
Right.
And
Right.
now, a lot of these people feel more comfortable, because of people like Trump, or because of, other people who are out there who are in positions of leadership to say, hey, it's okay to feel these ways, or to, portray these things again, that these things have become more prevalent, in what's current history in its making. So my thing is, yeah, that it's very important, because we have to now teach our kids that, while this happened before, it's still happening now, and we have to either learn how to deal with it. For starters, we have to learn how to deal with people who are ignorant. I won't just say racist. We have to learn how people who are ignorant, because it's some of us too who are ignorant, meaning some of us as Black people who are ignorant. We have to learn how to deal with, situations when we get pulled over by the police. We have to learn how to deal with situations where we're not getting treated as equal then, or put on the same playing field. We don't get the same promotion as somebody may have gotten, that we feel like we're equal to, or even better than in some cases. So all of that plays into our history, and part of the conversations that we have to have with our children to say, yeah, right, because we do have access to people recording stuff on their phones now, versus back then a lot of stuff was put into newspapers, a lot of stuff was put into writings, and we weren't supposed to know how to read these things that they were putting out there in front of us. We weren't supposed to. All we saw were pictures of, like you said, people being lynched in the newspaper, because it was in newspapers. They were happy, they were glad, they were glorifying the fact that they were able to kill kill us. Yeah, exactly. Kill us back then in those ways. And now it's like, okay, well, we're seeing these things, and yeah, we're more outraged now because we are able to read, we're able to view, we're able to see these things, and now have a voice in which we know that we're ready to fight back for. And it's important that our kids understand exactly what it is that they're seeing, that they may not become numb to it by seeing so much of it, but educated and empowered to do something to break these cycles, to break these things that are going on. So I think we have to use the medium in which we have these days, such as media, to continue to empower, to continue to educate, and continue to to uplift, that we may continue to progress forward, because again, when you and I get old, when we die off or whatever, we're going to need a generation behind us to have these conversations in these podcasts, or to have these conversations in media, to continue to create history and all of those things that, that will continue to push, our people, or just us as, as in general, forward. So I think it's very important that we continue to have these conversations and not act like it's something that just started, 2-3 months ago or 2-3 years ago and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Ty. Brother, thank you again for joining me for another episode of Daddy Confessions. With what Ty said as his last statement, remember to go and check out RETV, and listen to the podcast here at Daddy Confessions as well. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on all your favorite podcast apps as well. Apparently we made it to Apple now. We made it on I don't know why Apple took so long. That's crazy. But we're even on Apple now. So check us out. Ty, again, thank you for joining us, or joining me. It's just me and you today. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it, man. Always love talking to you. So until next time, this is Daddy Confessions. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Peace.
Peace.